Before you do, let me stop sharing and pull you up so we can all see your smiling face.
Let me see if I can do this then. All right. Great. Okay. Good morning on this beautiful Friday morning in June. Welcome to Friday Chalk Talk. My name is Ruth Payne, not to be confused with another Ruth who was on last week. That other Ruth is the Ruth that knew Sean. And I'm a chaplain, and I am a staff chaplain at St. Luke's Hospital in Milwaukee. And I'm your moderator this morning. This morning we have a special edition of Chalk Talk, and this is actually the first one last year that I saw. I listened to the taped version of it when Dr. Mobazelak had sent it out, and I loved it. And so I was excited to be able to moderate this one. And this is where wisdom gets to be shared for the parting palliative care fellows and the parting chaplain residents here at Aurora. They'll be parting in August, but it seems to be getting closer and closer. And so regardless of how long we've been in the field, we all have something to learn and something to share. And so I'm excited to learn a lot this morning from everyone and to offer just a tad bit of what I've learned as well. So how we'll do this is I'll start with a little bit of, I'll share something, and then we'll open it up and we'll see what happens. We hope that it is Dr. Mobazelak's hope that each person will speak. And I share in that hope, right? Because everyone has something to teach us. And so share, I don't know, like a minute or two, less, more if you've got a lot. And we'll just, we'll see how it unfolds, if we need to moderate it more, or if you can just unmute when the time is right and share. So with that, I finished my residency in my chaplain residency almost 2 years ago in August. And one of the things that has stayed with me that I think was very helpful and has been helpful since then is we learned consultation equals competency. And so to always find those colleagues with whom you feel comfortable consulting with, that we are always going to be learning. We are always going to be growing and can grow from one another. So consultation equals competency. So keep consulting. And the other piece is, as chaplain residents, we had to write a weekly reflection, 2 to 3 pages every week on whatever came up for us in our clinical work or in our personal lives that related to how we are in clinic. And those were invaluable because they provided a space to just get out the hard stuff. And I continued that through the whole next year. I didn't send it to anybody, but I wrote my weekly reflection, and it really helped me continue to work through things that came up. So those would be my 2 little bits. Keep writing and consult, consult, consult.
Thanks, Ruth. So Krista Tippett on the On Being podcast, she had a special guest this past winter, and they talked about aspiring to never allow anyone to be humiliated in your presence. which is a really difficult task. You have all been in medicine now long enough that I'm sure you've been humiliated. We all have those stories. And I challenge you not to perpetuate that. So when that naive student or provider consults you, make sure you thank them for the consult and really help them to grow in positive ways.
Hi. My advice to the um, team and the fellows would be that wherever we work, understanding the culture of the place is very important. Collaboration with the specialist and the people that you work with, I think, is very important because, while we are also trying to grow the service, looking for those collaborations will help us in expanding the knowledge of palliative care to the people that are consulting us. But more than anything, I think most providers look at palliative care not only as providing consultation for the patients themselves, but sometimes they're just looking for someone to talk to, and they know that palliative care team is someone that really can listen. So I think sometimes we're providing consults not only for the patients, but it might be for the clinicians as well. So I think, just take a moment. I know that things can be very overwhelming when you have multiple people to see and round on, but I think if someone stops you and says, hey, you know what, I have this patient, what do you think about this? It may be more for them that they're talking to you, and that's how we build collaboration. And, later on, when you're well established in your practice, you can say, hey, wow, that sounds really great. Um, Maybe we can talk about it in about half an hour when, so like then you can really, they know that, oh yeah, this person is going to listen and get back to me. But at least initially, try to take some time to build those relationships with the team and the providers that are referring to you, because it's as much as about providing consult to the clinicians themselves, because these are very challenging patients that we're working with. And I think just bearing that in mind too, that sometimes we are also catering to the needs of the clinicians that are referring to us.
A piece of advice I'd like to share is that I've learned over the last couple of years doing this is when in doubt, slow things down, because we often feel like pressure, and I know I have had this where you feel pressure from the attending teams who are consulting you, and pressure from the nurses, and pressure to get things done. And in conversation with patients and families, you can see that they're overwhelmed by whatever and all the things that are going on. But it has been extremely freeing to be able to say to patients and families, it's okay. I don't need a decision today. I just wanted to talk about this and start this process of thinking. So my piece of advice is, when in doubt, slow it down. And that was a hard learned thing.
Mine kind of piggybacks on with Maureen's, which is, as the palliative care consultant, we have to remember that this is a process. Palliative care is a process, and our patients and their families and the team that are consulting us are all probably on different pages of that process. So just remember that it is a process, and you can't fix everything in one day, and you can't fix everything necessarily at any point, because people bring their life experiences to us. And at the times when we see these patients and families is a very stressful time. If they've been, for lack of a better word, dysfunctional or whatever, however their family unit has been, it's going to almost intensify it at this time. So just walking alongside of them and being with them, knowing that we can't fix everything. And like everyone else has said, making sure just communication obviously is just the biggest point of all of this, however it is, in person, by phone, by secure chat, whatever, it's so vitally important.
Good morning, everyone. It's Wendy Peltier. It's so great to see my friends. Hi, Sandy. So having been a residency director for a decade and being a mid-career palliative care person, my advice for you is actually more centered on you yourself as a provider. So, woo, you have completed a huge, huge milestone in your career. And one of the things I've noticed in medicine, because we're always jumping through the next hoop, getting to the next test, getting to the next exam, is what I wish for all of you is to take a pause and to really, really, really celebrate. And one of my joys in life was my high school chemistry teacher, who was a total hoot. Her name was Mrs. Lightfoot. And every year when we took a chemistry exam, she had this phrase. She was just totally crazy lady. And she said, every test is a celebration of your knowledge. And when we went in trembling to take a chemistry test, she had like balloons and flyers, and like the table, periodic table of elements was like in a color packet that we could have to take our test. And I do have to say, as much as at the time I thought she was crazy, her voice was in my head every major exam that I took to this day. Sort of that idea that you study as hard as you can, you're as ready as you're going to be, and on the day of the test, you're going to celebrate. And that puts you in that mind frame to do your best. So I'm so sorry that our team can't stay for the whole time today, but I really want to be sure that any fellows that are listening in take that moment of pride and accomplishment, and certainly to remember to keep in touch with all of us. I can't think of a happier time than when I get an email or a telephone call or a text from a former fellow, because we want people to realize you're always part of our community. So congratulations. Thanks for letting us join in.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm very much a novice. So my advice is a little bit more lighthearted, and it's to take the stairs. And I use motivation every time I walk into a room and then walk out. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm on 5, my next patient's on 11. That doesn't feel like a good idea. But I try to think about the person that I saw and the person I'm going to see and how much they wish they were able-bodied enough to take the stairs. And that it's a privilege to move my body and do it without too much thought. So that's my tip. Way to go, Alicia.
I'll just piggyback off of that because they both stole mine. Is in that, you know, what I very much try to do is I'm walking from patient room to patient room is to really just take that moment to take a breath and to center myself so that I can be fully present, because I tend to be in my head a lot and think about, you know, what I have to chart and what happened, and maybe that last consult didn't go as well, or I'm worried about the patient, or you know, just inundated with pages and secure chats or whatever. But just to take that moment as you're taking the stairs or just walking down the hall to just kind of take a breath and walk in clear-headed as possibly can be, so that you're present for that patient. And I would add to that, just never go in with an agenda. You can go in with a plan, but not an agenda, because that will often just get you into trouble. And kind of stemming off what Maureen said, a lot of people want us to have an agenda and have a plan that we're going to get to a certain place on a certain day, and you can't force those things. So that's my advice. Good luck.
I want to say to the fellows of this year that, you know, this year has been so different. You know, your training has happened during pandemic, right? Which we haven't seen any, I mean, when I was trained, we didn't have that. So be proud of yourself that what you have achieved this year. And even in future, what you are going to continue to achieve. You know, what we do is very meaningful. It's awesome. And it's, it's very satisfying. So you are in a career which is, you should be proud of. And I would say that, when you start your career, be open for change, be open for growth, and keep on learn from everyone, from your patient, from your colleagues. And, it's a lifelong learning process. So just continue learning and being proud of what you do. Congratulations.
I kind of want to piggyback on what everyone else has echoed and say continue learning and continue being open-minded and vulnerable. I recently took a interesting coaching class through Aurora, and they brought up, and I happened to buy it on Amazon, this really excellent book called Crucial Conversations. And I'm still in the process of reading it, so I won't confirm that I'm an expert yet, but maybe someday I will be. But some of the tools that they had in this book really encourage you to open conversations up with families and colleagues in order to sort of reduce the high stakes in the room down so that families and other people feel safe. And so you can really get to the most important issues at hand instead of dealing with all the other emotional everything. And so I guess my advice is perhaps look into figuring out a better way to communicate so that we can really hear what our families and our patients are trying to say, but also so we can identify when we get barriers and we can identify when we get a little stuck too. Because as I'm reading this book, I'm like, oh, I can see why I would respond in this way in this situation. So it's given me a nice awareness just of some, maybe habits that I've come into, but it's also been really useful for me to bring that into working with my patients and families to bring a little bit more ease to the conversation. So that's my encouragement, and I wish you beautiful things.
I think my only piece of advice and wisdom is to listen to all the other wise advice and wisdom. I think it was tremendous. I am familiar most recently with the Crucial Conversation, so I agree with Rachel. That's a great thing. And I was familiar with the reference you made, Marty, to the on being piece, and it was kind of eerie. I just for those that don't know, I'm not part of the program, but Marty is graciously I participated in these, and I'm the beneficiary more than the imparter of any wisdom. But really, each class and crop of any class, but palliative care folks, I think is energizes me and keeps me fresh. So I would just say, reiterate everything. Always maintain humility and honor and dignity of everybody we interact with, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing and for being a part of this amazing program. Congrats to the fellows and the residents. And I really want to echo also what Dr. Bott said about this year in particular. Like nobody has experienced this year except for those of us this year. And so congratulations.